empowering minds, amplifying voices, and transforming lives. This is the Untold Stories of Hope podcast, brought to you by the Destiny Connect Foundation. Your hosts, Zion Enogeu and Puffy Medupi.
My word. Welcome to another exciting episode, of Untold Stories of Hope podcast brought to you by Destiny Connect Foundation. It's always exciting to be in this platform whereby we can be able to communicate, to share knowledge and information. This is where we empower minds. This is where we amplify voices and transform lives. That's what is called Untold Stories of Hope podcast. And yes, my name is Puffy Medupi, all the way from South Africa. It's always exciting to be talking to you, and we are going to have fun in terms of everything that we have prepared for you today. Remember that you can always reach us on our social media pages. It can be your Facebook, it can be LinkedIn, it can be YouTube. You can just say Destiny Connect Foundation. Or you can be able to even visit our website where you say destinyconnectfoundation.org, because that's where you can find us and liaise with us. Who knows, maybe you can also bring your own untold story of hope that is going to inspire someone and change someone's life. And believe you me, this is a platform where we give you exposure. If you want to sponsor this show as well, if you want to sponsor this podcast, you can be able to do that, and throw in some resources that we need for the sake of the moving of this particular podcast. And you can just do that by always checking our website on how to partner with us. I'm not alone always. I'm with this exciting, phenomenal young lady, Florence Maseko, and welcome to Untold Stories of Hope podcast.
Thank you very much, Mr. Puffy. As Mr. Puffy said, my name is Florence Maseko, all the way from South Africa. And as Mr. Puffy said, once again, that we are going to have another phenomenal episode right here on Untold Stories of Hope. So today we are honored to have with us a very special guest joining us all the way from San Antonio, Texas, USA, Tristan Moore. Now, Tristan is a non-profit researcher, a board director, and a change management chair with a wealth of experience in philanthropy and a program development, as well as in organizational transformation. He holds multiple certifications, including CCMP, ProSci, CNP, and is completing his doctorate in business administration. But beyond the titles, Tristan is someone who is deeply passionate about helping nonprofits unlock new ways of thinking, sparking change where it's needed most, and shaping suitable impact for communities worldwide. In today's conversation, Tristan will be sharing on the topic ideas about nonprofits you may not have heard about. Now, get ready for an inspiring discussion filled with wisdom, real stories, and thought-provoking insights from a leader who has walked the path of both research and practice in the nonprofit world rather. Tristan, welcome to Untold Stories of Hope. We are thrilled to have you here. How are you doing?
Doing well, and I hope I can live up to that introduction. Man, your guys' energy is contagious. It's exciting. I'm happy to be here with you guys, and I'm looking forward to it. I love chatting about nonprofits, so this is a fun opportunity, so thank you for having me.
Definitely. Thank you very much for being here and honoring the invite. Now, I am going to firstly ask questions, and it's all about your personal journey and your motivation. Now, my first question is, what first drew you into the nonprofit world, and was there a personal experience or moment in your life that made you realize this is where you belong?
Yeah, so I'll make a long story kind of short, because my journey into nonprofit is probably a bit unorthodox, or might I say original. But I originally started my collegiate journey looking into business. I was getting my general management degree in business science, and it was mainly looking at profitability, right? Working for these organizations, how to affect P&Ls, how to have more impact. And I ended up transitioning. I was going to get my MBA, and I met with a professor of mine who was a mentor, and he advised this MHA program, a Master's in Health Administration. And it shifted my purview a little bit. I now started to think, okay, well, before I was mainly thinking about business, but if I work in the healthcare space, my knack for strategy and my skill set can be geared towards helping people, saving lives. And so fast forwarding that journey, we get to a point to where I'm finishing my MHA and COVID hit. And originally the plan was to do an overseas, work in a medical center somewhere. We were going to get some international exposure in healthcare. Well, obviously travel was shut down at this time, so we couldn't do that. And so what I was pushed into was doing this thesis and this consulting. And I found this small nonprofit, Rough Healing Heroes, formerly known as Rockland Residents United for FIDO. In this nonprofit, I worked with them for a while, and we worked on strategic development. We worked on a succession plan for their founder. We looked on developing committees. And what I had found is working in the nonprofit space, it was no longer about P&Ls. It was about impact. It was about value to society. And I really remember this moment vividly, and it sticks with me, where I was at an event, and this nonprofit does an amazing job at funding various programs to train canines for veterans. And we're having a conversation with this individual, complete normal conversation, would not thought anything of it, and their canine kept nudging them on their leg. I didn't pay much attention, and the canine kept nudging them. And so finally, the individual I'm talking with realizes that I notice. And so she looks down, she gives the dog a treat. She tells me, like, hey, I was a veteran, I have PTSD, I'm having an anxiety attack, this is a lot for me. And it was this amazing moment of something I would have never noticed, but this canine noticed, who would have never been paired with this individual if not for the impact of this nonprofit. And it was that was probably a pivotal moment for me, where I realized, like, this is meaningful. And so from there, I decided that, I went to go get my doctorate, and my focus has been on understanding nonprofits, better understanding how they change, and hopefully having some form of impact in this space.
That's amazing. I'm listening to you, and I'm so intrigued in terms of your energy, and it's always beautiful, because part of our mission and vision in Destiny Connect Foundation is to amplify education. And when I heard Maseko mentioning all these qualifications that you have, I became excited and motivated. I became inspired to say, okay, maybe I can also get an MTC something, ACZ something, But yeah, tell me something. In this journey of non-profit organization, there's always a lot of challenges, especially personally. Can you tell us some of these challenges that really personally you faced in this journey, and how have they shaped you to become who you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. And where my expertise, if you will, lies, and where I love to work in the space is it's people. I have my CCNP, which is Certified Change Management Professional, and I've professionally worked in large-scale change in healthcare. And when you work in change management, you realize that the biggest piece of change is really emotions. We don't like to change. And that is universal across nonprofit, for-profit, no matter what sector you're in. We don't like to do things different. We like to do what we do, and we like to stay on track. And so a consistent challenge that I see, no matter what nonprofit I'm working with, is this idea of transitioning the way we think and understanding the impact of why we are changing. Rather, if that's through programs of buying robots to clean up beaches, or working within spaces of educating other nonprofit leaders, it's understanding people and transitioning and being in a space that works best for them.
All right, so I am going to be asking you, when you think of your journey so far, What's the most defining moment that gave you the courage to keep going even when the path was uncertain?
Ooh,
Amazing.
yeah, that's a great question. And I think uncertainty is it's everywhere. It's in everything. As you know, if you look at my LinkedIn or my Catchafy, you see feedback from nonprofits I've worked with, and just as many as you see great testimonials, there's probably been a nonprofit that maybe I couldn't get through to, or maybe we couldn't connect with, and that creates uncertainty. I sometimes, we don't like to use the word failure, right? It's growth opportunities, but sometimes you connect with a nonprofit and you just can't quite get to the finish line that you were trying to achieve. And so in that space of uncertainty, it actually inspires new ways of approaching the problem. I can reflect back and think about, okay, what went wrong and how can we address it? And I'd say one of the things that's come out of that is I recently started writing short stories. I'm in the academic space, but I'm also a practitioner. And so what I realized was, God, there's this great book of resources out there, but it's really dense academic literature. Right. It's really just quantitative. I did this research here and this is what my findings and these are p values. And a lot of times it's hard to extract the meaning behind it. And so through some of this uncertainty that I've gotten from maybe just consultations that haven't worked out the best, this kind of grew. And it's just one thing that's transpired from a negative and become a positive, if you will.
You know what you said? It's very much interesting, especially when you mention the research that you are doing, because this is what I'm going to talk to you about now. We're going to look at, passion and purpose, because many times, many of us, we do this work not so passionately, not so focused, and sometimes we do it for money. That is why there's something I learned, especially with nonprofit. If you really focus on money, you might not make it, so far, because sometimes it takes some time to get resources and all of that. But tell me now, in your research of nonprofit, have you ever come across any experience that is so emotional? And sometimes when you think about this, even today, you're still feeling emotional about it. Because obviously you come across many stories, many challenging situations, stories of many people in different backgrounds. Can you recall any experience that still gives you some emotion still today?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I kind of already shared that one in the way of giving away my best one, which was the veteran story of watching that interaction between them and the canine. But on smaller notes, it's you talk about money, and nonprofits are a business. They have to make money. If no money, no mission. But we can't get lost in that either. It can't be about the money, and so it's this funny balance. And so
Yeah.
when you talk about these drive-in passions, in relation to money, sometimes it's really rewarding and fun, to work with someone. I worked on this. It was a gala, for lack of a better term, without digging into nuance. And I worked with this individual for a while, and they were trying to hit targets. And what we had implemented was, again, taking this academic and practitioner difference of these dense literature papers, and I came across cause-related marketing, which is a concept of basically entrepreneurs and businesses, they want some form of ROI, right? They want to be seen. Like, yes, we have this intrinsic feeling of, I want to feel good about what I'm doing, but we're also a business. And so by incorporating this concept and adjusting some of their marketing material, eventually we finished our work. She posted the fundraising event online, and they were getting people who were supporting. And I got this email like 2 or 3 months later after working with her, and it was, hey, I just want to give you an update. We broke our record. We still have 2 months to go, and I really appreciate your help. And that was something directly associated with money, but still is passionate. And because of those kind of events, their mission can be driven further.
Lovely.
Lovely indeed, sir. Now, once again, continuing on your passion and your purpose, who or what has been your greatest source of inspiration in pursuing non-profit change and philanthropy, and why?
Ooh, I have had some great mentors and leaders through the years. A few of them come to mind. One is honestly the first nonprofit I worked with, the Rough Healing Heroes. Their founder was inspiring. She's a great individual, Vicky Curtis, and she was supportive in allowing me to work with a nonprofit with my MHA and really building that knack. And so that she was the practitioner support that I would definitely give a shout out to. The other inspiration I would take would be Dr. Larry Biannotti, an individual that works in the nonprofit space, but predominantly in the government world. And he works with like large scale leadership change and strategic change. And I got to see some of the impact of his work. And it really started to feel further this concept of, my expertise and background, if you will, is strategy, leadership, governance, development, which is for profit as well. But we can use these skills to drive impact and mission and societal value versus bottom line P&Ls. And seeing that difference was, I think, an impactful and transformational viewpoint.
You are still tuned in to Untold Stories of Hope podcast brought to you by Destiny Connect Foundation. You are still here with me, Puffy, Medupi, Florence, Maseko, and Tristan Moore. We are talking about nothing but non-profit organization. Tristan is an expert in this field, and that is why he's helping us to gain more knowledge and insight in terms of what we are talking about. Remember that you can follow Destiny Connect Foundation, on our social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, or our website, destinyconnectfoundation.org. And remember that you can also sponsor an episode. It's very much simple. Just go to our website, check where we need sponsorships. You can liaise with us, email us so that we can be able to give you a slot. You can sponsor that particular episode so that we can keep the initiatives moving. So now Tristan spoke about resources in non-profit organization. So Tristan, you mentioned something very much important. As much as we say non-profit organization or non-profit, let me generalize it, it's not about money, but you mentioned that resources are most important because it has to keep the vision alive. It has to, keep moving. You have to keep empowering people. There are so many factors that are involved in that. But now I wanna look at the part whereby, have you ever come to a term of questioning your path in the non-profit? Have you ever come to a point where you said, did I choose the correct path? Have you ever come to a point where you are discouraged? And if that is it, how did you come back to your senses? Because we know it's challenging, man. Sometimes every career, every job path, every work, can be overwhelming.
Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal question. And I think the short answer is every day. Every day I question my path into this journey. It's a lot, and it's in the name nonprofit, right? And I say this because I come from the healthcare space, predominantly in change management, construction realm, and I worked on large scale change, and compensation is well in the healthcare space, I will say. In nonprofit space, obviously, it's a bit more encumbered to work in this realm. And so, yeah, there's a constant battle with, should I transition back to a more profitable career? And it's these stories that I come across that I share with you, right? The dog nudging the veteran's leg, the email I got from, hey, we broke our record for funding, and hey, we were able to help XYZ more children at the children's shelter, and all these little concepts that pop up that resonate with who I want to be as a person, who I strive to be, and resonate with the effect I'm hoping to have in my research and careers. And so I think that's a fundamental driver in why I continue in this space.
All right. So now, Mr. Moore, I am more interested in your professional journey and the impact you have on on non-profit organizations. Now, what's an untold or less obvious truth about non-profits that you've discovered in your research, and which is something most people outside the sector don't realize?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
There's, gosh, there's so much. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ones. I haven't completed my own research yet, and so I'm reluctant to speak upon research that hasn't been peer reviewed. Um, but what I've seen from personal experiences, and so not quite referencing my academic research background, is if you think you're having a hard time with your board, everyone is. I meet with nonprofit leaders probably, I don't know, 5 to 10 times a week at this point. It seems to be a lot of my time I spend having a cup of coffee or a call, and having conflict within a board is pretty natural, but it's a balancing act, right? It's this idea of we need diverse views. If someone comes to me and they say, "Oh, our board's perfect, we make all the best decisions, everyone's in agreement," first thing that comes to mind is like, okay, is it the best decision? Because you need that diverse perspective. And so this conflict people feel are like, oh, well, I have this one board member, and it's like, well, are they really someone who's resisting, or are they providing a diverse view that maybe not everyone's used to, maybe not everyone's acceptant towards, but it's using those viewpoints and ideas to craft something that, and I say this, remember, it's no one owns a nonprofit. It's the mission and the vision. And so does that viewpoint actually lean better into the mission and vision than what the consensus is? And if so, how did we get there and why? As I said, that's one that I've seen quite a bit lately when I'm meeting with nonprofit leaders.
Yep. And I fully agree with you, Tristan. There's something that I know, especially that you mentioned the most critical part, which is decision making. Because when it comes to having a vision, decision making becomes the heart of progress and whatever achievement you are going to possess out of that. And you are right when you said some people make things look so easy, but eventually it's questionable because, where's scrutiny? Have you made the right decision? Who did you consult? How much time did you spend into making that particular decision? Did you make your research? And have you verified that research that we have done? All those critical points is what I understand from what you're saying. And, now I want to speak to you about personal sacrifices that you have made, so that you can fully dedicate yourself into nonprofit leadership and research. I mean, we all have to come to that point where we have to make personal sacrifices. And sometimes it is things that we don't tell anyone about, and those are kind of success stories that we hear somebody saying, I've never told anyone about this. So what are those sacrifices that you have made just to fully dedicate yourself into this thing?
Yeah, no, I think that's a tough one. And I could see how sometimes people open up a little more, especially with your charismatic attitude, pulls it out of them a little bit. But I would say, my biggest sacrifice has really just been this transition, transitioning from, the healthcare construction change management space into more nonprofit forward looking space. And I can't say it's been, sunshine and roses monetarily, but I do feel fulfilled with the things that I'm doing. And so that's, I know I kind of touched on it earlier, but that's definitely the driver. The testimonials I receive and the emails I receive talking about programs launching at a higher rate, and working with these nonprofits and seeing impact in society is definitely a driver in what keeps me here. And that the sacrifice has been the monetization of my career, which is tough, but it's it's different.
I love it. Now, Mr. Moore, looking back into your journey, what's the most unexpected lesson you've learned about change management and philanthropy that completely transformed your perspective?
Ooh, this is kind of a funny one, but it's change management. And again, I talked about this how it's both nonprofit and for profit, but it's people are very unique, but the same. We
Definitely.
have a lot of the same feelings about change, and we have a lot of the same disdains, and we're aggravated when things don't work the way that we want them to. And I spent some time part of my program over in Europe for a bit. We got to meet with some business leaders and hear about their challenges and struggles, and it kind of popped in my head like, man, this is really these feelings that I see when I'm working with people. It traverses culture, society, people. It's very human. And to give a tangible example, one of the things that I did a lot with my one of my previous roles when I was working on a large scale change was I would take a call Friday at 5 o'clock, right? And the call would be an hour long with someone who's not very happy on the phone, being frustrated, expressing their grievances. And I came to find that a lot of times as humans, we don't want answers. We want to be heard. And so taking that time to listen to someone at 5 o'clock on a Friday, right? I'm supposed to be off, I'm supposed to start my weekend. I'm like, all right, let me take this call. And hearing them just complain for an hour and saying things like, no, I hear you. I agree. That is a problem. We're trying to address it, right? Recognizing active listening, like Puffy has talked about in the training sessions. Utilizing these tools. And then, at the very end, I'd say 90% of the time, the conversation would end with, you know what, Tristan, I appreciate you listening, and I understand that you're trying to actually make things better. When I go back to this XYZ meeting, I'll let the other people know that you're actually trying to do good. And it was just listening to someone. I didn't have to tell them like, oh, this is a plan, and this is and we're going to make XYZ more money. It was just using these active listening tools and being humanistic, empathetic in that nature. Oh, did we lose Puffy?
I think we did. But the last question that we have is all about the legacy and hope. And if your life's work um, in the nonprofit world could be remembered in one sentence, what would you want that sentence to be? And why does it matter so much to you?
Wow, that's an impactful and meaningful question. I don't think I've ever tried to put what my existence in this space would mean in one sentence. God, I guess to kind of come off the cuff in like a thought ways, it would be empathetic change with a societal impact.
Okay.
And I know it's ambiguous and broad on purpose, but what I mean by that is my research currently, and how I came to my research was, again, I was working in large scale change and I had my CCNP, and so I'm relatively well versed in the change space when it comes to ADKAR methodologies, Cotter, Lewins, these kind of things. And I started working with these nonprofits, and I tried to apply these tools, but I realized they don't quite fit right. They work, it's like fitting a square peg in a circle hole. Like you can make it work, but I couldn't find a change model that I felt was the right fit for the needs of a nonprofit and the variables they face. And so that's what my hope is with my research. One, it's to inform, what are these variables? How do you make them tangible and quantifiable? But second is, how do we use information to inform a change model? How do we give a nonprofit that is a completely working board, right? They've got all board members, no paid staff. They have a
Yeah.
meeting, they execute the meeting, they go do the work. That's a very different change than in the for-profit space. So what is a tool that we can provide to them? So if they want to launch a new program, if they want to transition, they want to do some kind of merger, that they can use this tool to inform them of various pitfalls and give them the right steps to go through to effectively change, while addressing what I believe Cotter does very well in his model is the empathetic side of humans. Recognizing that we have needs and recognizing we want to be heard and making sure that is addressed. So ultimately, at the end of the day, these nonprofits can have a bigger and more effective impact in their communities.
Hey, that's powerful. Sometimes we look down on such aspects, especially on how it brings, the light of everything that we need in terms of moving forward, And I just want you to give, advice. Probably there's someone watching out there and they feel like they made a lot of mistakes, and some of them are critical mistakes. There are people who have been in this path of nonprofit, and they felt like, what, some of the errors that we've committed are beyond repair. But I'm looking at, how you personally have learned some of the biggest lessons, in your journey, especially when it comes to change management and philanthropy, and how it has changed your perspective about this whole game of nonprofit. So speak to someone somewhere, Tristan, who's looking at you now and listening audibly, with hope that whatever that you are going to say now will change, their mind in terms of coming back into the nonprofit space and carry on. Because sometimes people felt like, what, I messed up, I'm never gonna get this thing right, I'm never gonna do it. So what can you say to the person?
Yeah, that's a great question. And who I'll speak to here is the nonprofit leader that maybe couldn't quite get their nonprofit off the ground, or couldn't find the traction, or couldn't find the people, right? There's so many barriers that got in the way of getting your nonprofit in a place in which it could grow and flourish and provide that benefit. And what I say is, we live in a time where artificial intelligence and connectivity is at an all-time high. And those two are almost counterintuitive, right? We have connectivity, which is human to human, and then we have this robot aspect of talking to a computer. But I say that because, go to your IRS website, look at 990 forms, see what impacts are in your area, see where maybe you don't have to make a nonprofit. Maybe your 501c3 wasn't meant to flourish because someone's already in the space, and where you're really meant to be is a leader in that nonprofit. Where nonprofits aren't owned, they provide a benefit. And so looking at it with that lens, you'd be surprised, where these great leaders, maybe they just haven't found where their purpose is as far as providing benefit to their communities. And if you're concerned about, maybe I don't have the right skill set, or maybe I don't know how to do this, we live in an amazing age of artificial intelligence. I really push people to, go to OpenAI, and it even has a chat function now. You can talk to it. Say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I don't know what to do. Be open and honest with it, because it's a tool that can really provide great feedback. And if you get deeper into it, you get into these prompting methodologies, you get into these various different AI-based tools out there that, if you're lacking a skill set, it can really provide insight to you, or at least at the minimalist, a direction to go, so you can provide that benefit to your community.
And what you said is very much powerful. It's important for people to know how to use resources that are within their reach. I mean, you said something that I believe many of us forget about, AI, just to ease the burden, just to give us this hope that we can develop materials, get information, develop documents, and strategize moving forward. Like you said, you ask AI, what can I do from here? and it will give you some couple of strategies, and it can make things easier. So we are very grateful. And how can people reach you? I mean, you are a man in demand. I can imagine how many people now, as they are watching this episode, they are like, we want to contact Tristan. They want to know how they can find you. Which social media platforms, any email, any contacts, how can people reach you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn with my name, Tristan Moore. I've also got, I think it got reversed around due to the flip of the video, but that's my digital business card, has all my contact information. I'm always happy to talk to nonprofits, especially hearing their journeys, their struggles. And, I'm finding a lot of similar pain points in the field. And, the more information and exposure I have, the better I'm informed and at addressing these challenges and pain points. So absolutely, I'd love to talk with anyone and any field of nonprofits. And you can find me, like I said, LinkedIn, or my QR code there is all my information.
All right. Well, Mr. Moore, thank you so much for honoring the invite and for such a meaningful conversation that we had today. And I believe so many people have learned a lot from this
Yeah.
meaningful conversation that we've had. And yeah, if you've joined us right now, just know that we are wrapping up. But please do make sure to go through the episode, and I believe you learned a thing or two from the conversation that we had today. I go by the name of Florence Maseko, and you are still tuned right here on Disney Connect Foundation podcast, Untold Stories of Hope, empowering minds, amplifying voices, and transforming lives. And please do make sure to catch us and follow us on our social media platforms on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We are at Disney Connect Foundation, and our website is at www.disneyconnectfoundation.org.
Thank you so much. We are more than grateful to be here with you today. My name is Puffy Medupi. Thank you to the amazing Florence Maseko. She's phenomenal. I love her energy, and working with her always is amazing. And we thank Tristan Moore, our amazing guest today. You know what they say, Tristan? They say a guy who wears glasses is very smart. So I'm gonna buy glasses when I'm gonna get myself a pair of glasses so that I can look like Tristan, man. And I know I can think better. So thank you so much for tuning in to Untold Stories of Hope podcast, brought to you by Destiny Connect Foundation. We are so much excited, and don't forget that if you also want to be part of this podcast, all you can do is to say Destiny Connect on destinyconnectfoundation.org. You go to our website and you can be able to submit there your biography, and we can look into it and call you for an interview as well. Don't forget also that you can sponsor the podcast. You can either sponsor the episode in which you are featured in, or you can sponsor the entire podcast. You never know. We are tuned in to people who are able to give some resources. So as we are growing also, we want to say thank you to our loyal listeners and viewers every time who are joining us in every episode, because we know that it is your viewership that keeps us going, and we can never look down on that. So thank you so much from the bottom to the depth of my heart. I want to appreciate you, and we say we will speak to you again in the next episode. Sharp, sharp.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Untold Stories of Hope podcast. We hope you enjoyed and you were inspired by today's conversation. Remember, you can get more access to resources plus join a thriving global community of change makers by visiting our website at destinyconnectfoundation.org. Please subscribe to our channel and spread the word. Don't forget to turn the notification on. Until next time, keep inspiring your world.